My name is Devina Vargas, and this is my leisure activity project on fishing. Fishing or angling is defined as the action of one, especially the action of sports of fishing with hook and line. Fishing history dates back to the beginning of time. Initially, it was used for hunting purposes rather than what it is today is considered a sport. In the past, fishing was considered a way of survival. Every culture has some connection to fishing. Whether it be cold climates where they would ice fish, or the ocean where they used spears, men were predominantly the fishermen. In the Pacific, islands such as Tonga and Fiji have cultures that base fishing around magic and rituals. It was taboo for women to fish. In some of these island cultures, they considered it bad luck for a woman to step foot into a canoe or to touch fishing gear. If a woman were to touch one of the men's fishing gear, they would have to burn it. Although women weren't completely secluded from fishing, deep-sea fishing was considered out of the question because it was dangerous and they felt like it was not a place for women. In these cultures, women maintained the home by gathering seeds, edible plants, raising crops, and by processing the meat and skins of animals that men would bring home from hunting trips. Within these island communities, women and children were allowed to fish, but they were only given sticks and baskets and only able to fish within shallow waters or lagoons. They would collect fish, shells, and organisms, but they were heavily regulated by the males within the community. Fishing today is no longer just a method of survival. It is a well-respected sport around the world, as well as a favorite leisure pastime for male bonding. Within the last several years, women have begun to break into fishing. They are being taught by their fathers and sharing the love of the sport. According to the 2007 National Sports Goods Association survey, 11.9 American women are fishing. 32.3% of anglers are female compared to the 67.8% that are men. Due to the rise of women in the sport, there are more fishing associations, support groups, and merchandise geared toward women. For example, there is the International Women's Fishing Association, along with magazines and all-women fishing tournaments. This picture shows Judy Wong, a 2008 Women's Bass Champion. She won over $16,000 worth of cash and prizes. Despite the women's breakthrough in the sport, the winnings from the Women's Bass Tournament doesn't compare to those from the Male Bass Masters Tournament. I feel that women didn't participate in fishing as much in the past was because of the views on the way society perceived women and how they should act. The thought of women in the past were to be very delicate, proper, and feminine. Their place was thought to be in the home. Fishing in general isn't the most ladylike thing to do, in my opinion, meaning that you need to be able to handle getting a little dirty and touching the slimy fish. Fishing in the past was considered to be a male-only pastime. Since the beginning of time, fishing was only linked to men, and it was used for hunting purposes or, as recently, as a sport. Because today, however, women have changed the perception, showing that they can get a little dirty, and it doesn't change how much of a woman that they are. Now I'm going to share my experience fishing. So this is me. I'm fishing on the Antioch Pier on a surprisingly cold day in July. In these pictures, it shows me baiting a hook. On the left, I'm grabbing one of the sardines and about to cut it in half in order to put it on the hook that shows on the right. During this time, I was very excited to see if I'm going to be able to catch a fish at all tonight. Although the sardines was no challenge to me, I found it more challenging to cast out. It was very difficult, and I actually had to have somebody help me in order to get the line as far away from the pier as possible. During this time, there were many people on the pier, and I felt like a newcomer. It was a bit awkward because the people on the pier were very serious. It seemed they knew exactly what they were doing, And one man had been out there from 10 in the morning, and it was already 7 o'clock at night when we got out. After all my patience and efforts and time waiting, the only thing I ended up was with some seaweed and a tiny clam. That was another challenge that I had, was sitting there waiting and ending up with the disappointment of a tiny clam and some seaweed. Despite my initial disappointment, I still continued to fish. During my time waiting, I found a real appreciation for fishing. I found it to be very relaxing and laid back. It was a perfect way to get away and de-stress without having to go very far. Here is where I realized why so many people go fishing. It's not about the competition on who gets the fish first or how big the fish is. It's about slowing down and getting away from the hustle bustle of the normal life and appreciating what's around us. In conclusion, I feel that I will participate in fishing again. Hopefully, next time I go fishing, it will be a nicer day where the sun is shining and the wind isn't blowing. And hopefully, this time I will catch a fish rather than a tiny mussel or some seaweed.